When the Chromecast with Google TV, the HD version, was unveiled, we're sure that more than a few heads turned in confusion. Who is this device for, and why should you choose it? Well, having spent a week with Google's latest streaming stick or dongle, we feel we're closer to an answer. So this is our full review of the Chromecast with Google TV HD. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe, and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. Before we dive in, if you want 4K content or want to stream 4K content, then this is not the device for you. Obviously, even though there is a newer device, as the name implies, it can only output 1080p video at up to 60 FPS. If you want UHD and 4K video streaming in your home, then stick with the original Chromecast with Google TV from 2020. So when Google launched the Chromecast line back in 2013, the idea that you would use your smartphone to control or manage our playback and streaming seemed pretty novel. While it certainly has its flaws, the barrier to entry is removed as most people were getting smartphones, or most people had a smartphone at the time. Of course, that becomes a problem in its own right. Using a Chromecast at the beating heart of a media home entertainment system was doable, but the limitations of the Cast SDK means that while intuitive to most, it does create a barrier for some people, especially those not confident using their smartphone or even aware that you can get an application on your phone to connect to your TV using the Chromecast and then having it handle everything from the streaming and then of course the playback via your smartphone. These limitations have become increasingly apparent when such excellent Android TV set-top boxes like the Nvidia Shield TV exist. That said, it's easy to forget that this is merely a $30 streaming dongle plus remote that does what it sets out to do without an exorbitant entry cost. I can personally see the Chromecast HD being the perfect upgrade for elderly relatives or even a kid's bedroom. Removing the reliance on your smartphone is in fact the most important upgrade here. I have become very familiar with that physical Chromecast remote over the past couple of years after using the Chromecast with Google TV daily in my living room. It's a great size and the buttons have that mushy appeal to me that reminds me of old school remotes from my youth. On the new model, the remote is identical, and that means this same dedicated Google Assistant button, YouTube and Netflix buttons included. Google has decided that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And for me, I think that is absolutely fine. And for sure, for many of you out there, it will be absolutely fine too. If you're willing to spend an extra $20, you can actually buy a spare direct from the Google Store, but that's actually 2/3 of the cost of a new Chromecast HD, so that wouldn't be a sensible use of your cash. I would say, if you do want a spare, go pick one up, but realistically, you should probably put that money towards a USB-C dongle. I'll talk about that more in a little bit though. The Chromecast remote, I have to say, is a small size and it is easy to misplace, so at least you do have the option if you do want to pick up a spare or you happen to lose the original. As for the actual device, the Chromecast with Google TV HD version is just a carbon copy of the 4K model that was released back in 2020. It utilises the exact same footprint with that short HDMI lead attached to a flat oblong shape. There's a USB-C port at the bottom which is needed for power but can be used for expansion via USB-C as I mentioned, so long as you do have a dongle that can be connected to a power outlet. Annoyingly, but somewhat unexpectedly, there is still no ability to power the device by USB ports found on the back of many modern TVs, but maybe eventually we will get that as TVs get more and more powerful. You can only pick up this new Chromecast in a solitary white or snow colorway, which might help you at least decide which is right for you. The accompanying remote is also similarly plain in that white color, but there is a neat touch of colored batteries in the box, which I really do like. It's his attention to detail that I think really does go overlooked on a lot of Google products. This doesn't matter all too much, the colour that is, given that the Chromecast is going to be hidden from view 99.9% of the time, but if you do care about the colour of your Chromecast and the remote associated with it, you might want to pick up that 4K version. There's absolutely no difference in the build of Google TV that comes preloaded on the Chromecast HD versus the original 4K capable model in 2020, save this is the Android 12 version. If there is a dip in performance courtesy of the lower 1.5GB of RAM and that Amlogic SA05X2 chip, then I must admit I have yet to notice it. That's not to say performance is slick all of the time. You might see momentary hangs or lag when you're trying to load certain applications. Once things have loaded though, things run smoothly, but it is noticeable, especially when booting up for the first time, particularly as in our original review, we noted that the original Chromecast with Google TV had that same issue. The main Google TV home screen can actually take a couple of seconds to load sometimes. Once that homepage does populate with images and content and suggestions, it's fairly smooth and on par with most satellite or cable TV services that I've used over the years, without the exorbitant subscription fees, of course. Almost all applications that you'll run on your TV, they're perfectly fine. That's all I'm trying to say here. Internal hardware aside, so long as you can scroll and click to select a video or in apps like YouTube or Netflix, then I'd say most set-top boxes are pretty much the same. I did try a little Stadia and some cloud gaming, and the experience has been just as smooth here as it always has been, at least for me, which makes this the first dedicated 1080p only hardware from Google to offer gameplay on their internal cloud gaming platform for what it's worth. The only major annoyance you might find though on this device from the get-go, and was a problem on the previous unit, is that 8GB storage constraint. A number of apps do come pre-installed, such as Netflix, YouTube and all of the usual culprits. There is though the addition of some bloatware, courtesy of TikTok, that gets added during the setup process. I was told you could actually prevent this during that initial procedure, but like probably many of you out there, I did gloss over this and it was installed on my device without paying attention to that process, just firing through, but you can just remove this after the fact, so it isn't too difficult to get rid of. It's just a little bit of annoyance. It does take up a little bit of storage. Another thing to note is that while somewhat moot on a 4K TV, you can actually see the dip in image quality. The Chromecast with Google TV, the HD variant, is still, as you'd expect, best used for 1080p TV sets or older HD capable models for the most consistent visual experience. You're probably wondering though, what about Android 12 for Google TV? Well, what is particularly interesting is that this model actually is one of the first to ship with the Android 12 build preloaded. It's a modest upgrade, but there are a few little notable features that do come out of the box. The most important to frequent travelers though, which I think is one of the reasons why you might want to pick this up, could be the Quick Connect mode for Wi-Fi. This lets you join Wi-Fi networks in super fast fashion just by scanning a QR code from your smartphone. Many people already use all existing models of the Chromecast, and I've been known to do this myself, as a portable media center. And I think this is a neat addition that will make the sometimes frustrating process of connecting to wireless networks that bit smoother, so long as you do have a phone running Android 13, that is. There are other useful functions built in here, like the ability to scale text up to 130% of its original size, which should make content easier to read for those with visual impairments. Another visual change is the ability to match the system or device frame rate to the content being displayed. It is enabled by default, but you can adjust this or disable it if you want, and I do think this is a nice touch for Google to add this. If you do have it enabled such that it will notify you when it's available, you may get a blank screen momentarily before it flips into the new frame rate to give you that visual indication. Other options include the ability to disable surround sound mode and those neat microphone and camera access indicators that were built into Android 12 and now here. None of this is directly affecting the experience of Google TV. That's still pretty much the same with its watch list and favorites setup, but it does round out the feature set that in ways that I think really do matter. So I'm sorry this isn't quite as in-depth as you might have expected. There isn't really a great deal new here over the previous version, so please go check out our original review of the Chromecast with Google TV. But I think in terms of its overall wider streaming lineup, the Chromecast HD does make sense, even to those who are wondering why. Well, if you want the best streaming option, stick with that 2020 iteration. Anyone though that wants a simple replacement for the admittedly basic 2018 Chromecast, this is almost a perfect solution, so long as you don't care for 4K video and 4K streaming. While from afar it does seem a little bit convoluted, as I mentioned, it's a good upgrade for a lot of households, especially those without a 4K TV. Firstly, you can get rid of the sometimes frustrating reliance on your smartphone for casting content to your TV. Secondly, there's a clean, well-organised menu and UI. And finally, we get a remote to aid that transition from a smartphone-led entertainment hub to a more traditional TV-led approach. Priced at $30, you're actually getting more bang for your buck from Google streaming dongles than ever before, which is only a good thing. For what it's worth though, I would always pick up the 4K version, but this ain't bad for the price at all. I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of this new Chromecast HD down in the comment sections below. Do you think you might pick one up? Do you think it might be a good upgrade for someone that you know? Until next time though, this is Damien with 95 Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.